like a Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where it's time for another Sega Saturn review, and I'm doing something that I've been putting off for such a long time, and that is covering a sports title. We're taking a look at a baseball game today in the form of World Series Baseball, the first one in the series on the console, and it came out in the PAL region in November of 1995. Now, I have to be honest with you, my experience of baseball games in general is very, very slim. In fact, before I played this game, I'd only played 2 baseball games in my life. One of them being Great Baseball on the Master System many, many years ago, and the other, of course, being Wii Sports Baseball a lot more recently. Although I say that, it was about 17 years ago when I played that as well. So this is really an eye-opener for me, playing a serious sim-like baseball game. And it was something that I was actually quite looking forward to when I booted the game up. So when the main menu rocks around, you'll see you've got Exhibition, Pennant Race, Playoffs, All-Star Game, Home Run Derby, Database and Options. Quite a bit to choose from. Heading into options, you can do your standard stuff like change the difficulty, put error correction on or off, wind on or off, designated hitter on or off, and you can change the amount of innings that you play with. It's preset to 9, which I believe is the standard amount for a baseball game, but that also means your game's going to last about 20 minutes on here for a single match. Now for my liking, that's too long, so I decide to set the innings a little bit lower than that so I can get through the games a bit quicker. So I'm going to do what I usually do and talk about the way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it plays, and what kind of content and lifespan it will provide, and whether it can make our Sega Saturn top 10. Now in the looks department, I was relatively surprised with World Series Baseball. I feel for a 1995 game, it looks pretty good. The stadium, the pitches, they actually look okay in my opinion, and the pre-rendered images are pretty decent. I'm not a big fan of those. I've made that point in several videos, and in some games they look really bad. But in this game, I do feel they're quite good. And actually, some of the batters have different poses as well, which is a nice touch. If you take notice of that, you will notice that some batters get ready to hit the ball in different ways. So I do like that attention to detail. Another thing is the motion capture for all the batters and the bowlers is pretty decent too, although maybe the correct terminology is pitcher, if I might be right in thinking that. I'm by no means a baseball pro, obviously. Yeah, so the animations, they're pretty good in the game as well, and that's quite a good thing. You can definitely tell it's a more advanced version from what was on the Mega Drive before. It's better animated, it looks better, and all of that. So overall, in the looks department, it looks pretty good for the time it came out.
Foul.
If there was one aspect of this game that I was probably more impressed with than anything else, it's probably the sound effects. In all fairness, the voiceover is really clear and crisp. The way he introduces all the players is a really good plus point for the game. And when you come up to the star players and stuff, you get this little tune before, and he emphasizes them much more. So that's a really nice touch as well. We got some nice little baseball style tunes as well in the game, and I feel overall in the sound and music department, this game delivers in every possible way that it could, and I'm actually quite impressed with that. So overall, there isn't really anything negative to say in that regard.
Now batting. Caminiti. One out.
Now, for saying how good it sounds, the game also plays really good as well, and I was surprised. I thought it might be a slightly complicated game to play because I'm not used to playing baseball games, but it is really simple. As a batter, you move around in your box with the D-pad, and you press the C button to swing your bat. That is it. If you want all the runners to advance from the base that they're onto the next base when you're hitting the ball, you just press Y. If you want an individual one to advance to the next one, you press the corresponding direction to the base you want him to run to. It's actually pretty simple. There's not really anything overly complicated about it. When you're bowling, you move your bowler, or pitcher I should say, side to side with the L and R triggers, and then you use the C button to bowl. You'll get a different style of bowl depending on what direction you hold, whether you get a fastball, a slow ball, or a curveball to either side. it's really simple stuff. Moving the fielders is simple as well. When you use the D-pad, it automatically moves all the fielders, and whichever one is closest to the ball, that's the one that'll have the cursor on. You can press the C to jump up and catch it. If you're running towards the ball, you can press C and he'll do a diving catch. If you want to throw the ball back to a base, you simply press down and C to throw it to home, right and C to throw it to first, up and C to throw it to second, left and C to throw it to third base. It is that simple. It is such a simplistic game to play, which makes it appealing. It's one of these games that you can actually pick up and play and have a decent time when you're playing it.
1 out and 2 runners on base.
If I'm going to be nitpicky with the gameplay, the only thing I really might point out is the fact that when you bowl to the CPU, you continually bowl, and 9 times out of 10 the CPU don't swing or they miss the ball, and it just seems a bit repetitive, a bit strange. I turned the difficulty up to maximum difficulty afterwards, and I played a game on that, and it was the same story on that one. I was just throwing fastball after fastball, and they just simply weren't hitting them, and I just kind of felt it got a bit repetitive in that regard. I don't really know if it's like that all the time, but for the games I played, it was like that, and I just thought it was a little bit strange. And also, hitting a home run in a standard game seems to be very difficult. I didn't manage to do it at all in any of the games that I played, yet when I put it on the home run derby option, I was able to smack home runs time and time again, which I found a little bit confusing, but these are only small nitpicks with the gameplay. The game overall is quite an enjoyable game to play. So moving on to content and lifespan, and this game is really full here as well, because you can go under the pennant race, which is the main mode of play, and this can be up to a 162 game full baseball season, meaning it is going to take you a long time to play through this. This is without a doubt a real time consuming sort of like main mode of play for those real baseball enthusiasts, without a doubt. You've also got playoffs, which is a sort of shorthand version where you just play, I think, maybe the end of the actual baseball season. You've obviously got exhibition. You've also got home run derby, where you go in, select a player, select how many bowls you want, and you just try and smack as many home runs as you can. This is quite a good game to play in multiplayer, obviously, if you've got friends to play with. You can also go into the database, and this is where you can look at all the teams on the game. There's 28 teams, 14 from the American League and 14 from the National League. I'm not really familiar which league is sort of like better, probably the American League, I'm guessing. But you go in there and you can check all the statistics from all the baseball players on all of the rosters from the previous year. And this is something that would really appeal to those sort of like statistical enthusiasts for the sport. It's a really good addition, I feel. So in the content and lifespan department, World Series Baseball is actually really good. So, is World Series Baseball worth playing today? Well, the answer is probably not, because it's got a sequel, World Series Baseball 2, and there's a sequel to that, World Series Baseball 98, which I believe is thought of as the best baseball game on the Saturn. In fact, I think from what I read, it was classed as the best baseball game in the world pretty much when it came out. So there's not really any need to play World Series Baseball, but it is actually a decent game. It looks okay, it sounds pretty good, it plays pretty good, there's decent content here as well. So for 1995, this was probably the best baseball game on the market, and it is genuinely a decent game. No, it's not going to get in the Sega Saturn top 10 because it's just a sports title. It simply doesn't have the individual quality to get into the Sega Saturn top 10, but it's not a bad game, and I was genuinely surprised and pleasantly surprised when I played it, because it's pretty enjoyable. As long as you turn the innings down from 9 to a much lower number like 3, 4, 5, then you can have quite quick paced games that are relatively enjoyable to play. So overall, it's a pretty decent game, but it's not worth playing because there's multiple sequels on the system, and obviously I'll cover those at some point, and it'll really be interesting to see how the series progresses from this to the next one to the third one. That is it for today. Let me know your thoughts and whether you think this is a genuinely decent baseball game like I do. Like I said, my experience with baseball games is very slim. That is it for today. Thank you for watching, and as always, I will be back in the near future with another video. Goodbye for now.
home run!